Hey race fans, welcome to another episode of Backseat Drivers. I am Alex Weaver here in Studio 3. First win of 2021 for Hendrick Motorsports, and now the youngest to ever win at Miami. The number 24 of William Byron clinches a spot in the 2021 NASCAR playoffs. What team should we be worried about this season? And man, oh man, those lap cars did it again. Well, let's welcome in some new friends to the backseat, Parker Kligerman and Landon Cassill. Hey guys, how are you?
Doing good.
Great, thanks for having us.
Landon and the floating head there. I love it. Wish you guys were here in studio, but you guys have a pretty tight friendship, so I just want to let you know that after this episode, we're going to check in on the friendship and see how we're still going after this arguing. But this is a segment to open us right up. Let's get right into it, called Left or Right. So we're going to have two different directions that you guys can take, and I want to start with Parker on this one. It's really hard to predict this with just 3 races in, but are you going left or right? Let's say left is being a first-time champ and right is being a repeat champ. What direction are you going?
I'm going left, and I'm going with the 11 car, Denny Hamlin, because it's his year, because every year is his year to go and win that first championship.
Landon?
I'm going right. I think we'll see a repeat champion. I think it's hard to beat those powerhouse teams on a long run over the entire course of the season.
Well, Landon, don't tell anybody, but I'm kind of on your side with this. But we did ask the fans in a social poll, and 62% of them agree with Parker. So we're not doing so hot. Parker, you have the fans on your side there.
Of course, all of America agrees with me, and that's great to hear.
They were voting with their heart.
Yeah.
All of America, every single person in this country voted in that, social poll. All right, so is it going to be difficult, however, though? Is it going to be one of these first guys that we see making it into the championship for? Or are you looking at somebody else in the garage for that first-time champ?
I think in terms of another car out there that might, be in that realm, I think the 24 of William Byron, for sure. I know that's easy to say after winning at Homestead, but I just think Rudy Fugle, him getting that win super early, it's just going to drive so much confidence to that organization and to that team that if they can make it to the round of 8, then I seriously think they have a chance of getting the championship 4. And as we saw last year, you don't need to be the favorite odds on to go and win the championship.
Landon, we'll stay over here with the old guys, okay?
So who's my repeat pick? I'd say Chase Elliott. I mean, make it 2 in a row for Chase. Seen a parts freeze for a year. The Hendrick cars have been really fast. I don't see why he can't do it again.
We have seen Michael McDowell already get the first win in 2021 at the Daytona 500. He's had top 10s in all 3 races, which has been different tracks for all 3 of them. Is it a fluke for the number 34 being really good this season?
I'm going to say it's not a total fluke. I mean, NASCAR has kind of leveled the playing field over the last year and a half with a parts freeze. Obviously, Front Row Motorsports has continued to close the gap to the bigger teams with their Roush Fenway alliance. So I think the 34 team could just be hitting their stride right now.
Parker, are you going to hurt the 34's feelings?
No, yeah, I love what they're doing. It's been awesome to see. I mean, Michael McDowell, Front Row Motorsports have been able to bring week after week in these first couple weeks, but it will not last over the course of a 36 race season. Unless you have the budget of those large teams, there will be times where you maybe start wrecking cars. You have down weeks. It's really hard for those smaller teams to recover from those. So even if they have the speed down, they can still bring it later on. It's in the doldrums of the summer. I just don't see this sticking up. I know there's a very diverse schedule. I know there's a parts freeze that may lend in their favor, but I don't see this continuing throughout the season.
So, Landon, if Michael McDowell isn't a fluke, where's the next win coming? Is there another win for this season?
Man, I mean, if there's another win coming, it's probably on a super speedway. But, I could definitely see some more top 10s, maybe a top 5 on a road course like COTA.
All right. Well, no true road trip is complete without the backseat drivers asking the question, are we there yet? So are we there yet with the expected winners? Because we're 3 races in already for this season, and the usual suspects like a Kevin Harvick or a Kyle Busch or even a Chase Elliott have not made it to victory lane yet. So, Landon, let's start with you. Impatient over there in those camps.
Well, I just said that there's going to be a repeat champion this year. I just said that the big teams are the powerhouses. Can we just at least bask in this moment where the smaller teams or the underdogs or the unexpected winners are having some glory? I mean, Tyler Reddick's charge through the field in the last 15 laps on Sunday was incredible. Michael McDowell, obviously, we've talked about. William Byron. I mean, this is just fun to watch right now. So just chill for a little bit.
Parker, you chilling?
Well, I got to agree. I know we're supposed to be maybe in a disagreement right here, but I got to agree because those teams will come online. We've been to 3 really unique tracks, right? We went to a super speedway, went to a road course, then Homestead Miami Speedway, which is one of the most unique mile and a halves that we have in the entire sport. I just believe when we start going to places like Vegas coming up next weekend, Texas, those sorts of places where those large powerhouse organizations and the drivers that have been so successful over the last half decade to a decade, they will rise up. We'll see the real true speed of those cars. And I don't think there's any reason for them to worry. And I don't see this continuing throughout the entirety of the season, them not having success.
I want to make one more point. I think it's actually something we're used to seeing. I've seen in the past as well, where the underdog teams can make a lot of progress over the offseason because they're not pressured with the week after week of putting race cars on the track, and they can catch up over the offseason, and they show some success in those first 3 or 4 weeks. And then that's where the grind starts, and the bigger teams with the resources just continue progress and leave their technical alliance teams in the dust.
That was my point with the 34. You just said it more eloquently. Thank you.
Yep. There you go.
So does the lack of practice, when we go back to these same tracks that we race at later in the season, is that helping those bigger dogs and those teams? Because it looks like right now the lack of practice and just heading on track is helping those newbies out a little bit.
I could go. I think it hurts the bigger teams. I think it gives us the smaller teams an opportunity to unload with their best stuff. And if the bigger teams, maybe have a car that's capable of more speed, if they don't unload perfectly, then that's how it levels the playing field without practice. But that's where you'll see a smaller team or an underdog start out the race with a ton of speed because maybe they just hit it just perfect, maybe like Chris Buescher did at Homestead. But once those more competitive teams with more resources get a couple pit stops under the belt, get those adjustments, they leapfrog.
I agree with that, definitely. And you saw it yesterday. You mentioned Chris Buescher. I mean, he fell off, and you saw some of the teams like the 19 car that was struggling early on. It was on the splitter. They made those adjustments, and sure enough, by midway through the race, they were really competitive. So I think it's those teams have so many resources. It is fun, though, their practice to see them sometimes caught off guard and see those smaller teams sort of capitalize. I mean, Chris Buescher, with his stage results, did an incredible job, which will propel them further in the season if they can continue finding races like that. So I think that's definitely something where it hurts the bigger teams, at least early on, but they figure it out.
So basically, you two are the parents who are telling the kids that, no, we're not there yet. I'll keep being patient, waiting for those teams to show up. Well, let's get into a couple teams that are struggling. I know you guys have some picks for this, but this is a segment we like to call You're Going the Wrong Way, which means that you are not trending in the right direction. So, Parker, who's a team or an organization who is not showing out how we expected at the start of the season?
I think they're showing the speed and they're showing the performance that we want out of them to be successful, but they just haven't been able to get the results, and that is Team Penske. Obviously, they were in position to win Daytona 500. They were fast at the road course. At least with Joe Logano was close. But then you look at Homestead, they were fast for sure. The 2-car was up there battling for the lead early on, but they just haven't got the results. And I think for that organization, they expect to be one of the dominant organizations of the sport. They expect to be getting wins, especially when you bring the kind of speed they do the racetrack. So I don't think they're freaking out in any way. They have the performance. It's just they haven't gotten the results, but it's still early.
Landon, who's your struggle bus this season?
Yeah, I mean, I think I want to see Stewart-Haas have a little more success right off the bat here, especially Chase Briscoe. I mean, I've got high hopes for him. I think he did such a great job in the Xfinity Series. I'm a big fan, but I want to see him get a win. I want to see him get a win early and make a statement. The 4 team at Stewart-Haas, the end of the season last year was a little weird. Seemed like it could have played some mental games on the group. I know they insist that it's not. Kevin Harvick has said we're putting it behind us and moving forward, but they need to get a win in these first 10 races to really convince me that they're back on their game.
Surprised that the 4 has not been in victory lane yet. Are you
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
I think Harvick and Rodney Childers are a little surprised as well. Well, this one, for my two drivers, you guys are so used to a burnout being after a win, but I'm going to change it up a little bit here in the backseat, and I'm going to make the burnout be somewhat of a soapbox, and I want to get your take on lapped cars. We saw a little bit of that action in the Xfinity Series on Saturday night with Noah Gragson getting into the back of a lapped car. He showed a bit of frustration. So, Landon, what's your soapbox or your burnout for lapped cars?
Man, I got to tell you, Noah Gragson is a phenomenal driver. He's extremely dynamic, charismatic. He's going to win 5 races this year.
I feel a butt coming.
But it's a big but. I mean, you're responsible for your own race car, period. You know, it doesn't matter if you think it's somebody else's fault, if they cut a tire. I said this on Twitter. The worst thing that his team or his supporters can say to him is, well, there's nothing you could have done. Because at the end of the day, when he was walking out of the infield care center, Maya Snyder was out there winning his race that he had an 8-second lead and could have coasted to victory. He could have moved halfway down the straightaway, run the bottom. He could have coasted to victory. And it didn't happen. So there's no use in blaming anybody else. You're responsible for your own race car. I've said for myself, this is how I've trained myself to keep from crashing when it's unnecessary. I don't care if a meteor falls from the sky. It's my responsibility to find a way to protect my race car.
So let's just say it. Don't run into him.
Don't run into him. Don't hit the lap cars.
That's all you got to do.
Don't hit him. Just don't hit him.
Yeah, don't hit him. We see so many drivers get upset. Yeah, like the lap cars are this, being are suddenly, out to get them. And I think fans sometimes view it that way, towards the leaders. And it's just not the case. They're just trying to drive their car around the racetrack. Often these lap cars are being lapped because they're driving race cars that are not handling well. They're not easy to drive, even though they're going slower than the leaders. It's because they're going that slow because those cars aren't capable of going faster. So I think it really boils down to, you said it very eloquently, Landon, but it just means don't run into them. And if you got to, when you have an 8-second lead and you got to run a line that isn't the best line because you have an 8-second lead, take it, go somewhere else on the racetrack, get the victory, let discretion be the better part of valor. So I think absolutely, just don't run into them.
Man, talk about an unusual opinion from two drivers here. So you don't expect the lap cars to move down and take a different line from the one you're running?
My thing with the lap car is just drive the same line. Now, if obviously what happened there and his tire going down and going up multiple lanes, that is annoying and it's tough, but you put yourself in a position of being in that position of allowing him to have that situation and hit you. So I think anytime I've raced lap cars and, I, of course, have gotten frustrated. I'm sure I've gotten on the radio and told, them they're the worst person in the world. But the thing is, I know at the end of the day, as long as they just do the same thing, there's predictable, then I don't really mind. It is what it is. You're having a bad day. I'm having a great day. Let's get past it. But it's not a situation where they're actively trying to be in your way and that sort of thing. It's often, even when they do get in your way, it's that they just can't even control it.
Well, in the case of Noah's situation with David Starr, the rebuttal, if I were Noah and I just heard you say that, I would say, well, what happened to David was not predictable, right? I didn't expect him to shred a tire and hit the fence. But that almost is my point, where it's like, fine, you can say that it's on David. You can say that he shredded a tire. You could say that he messed up. But you're saying that from the garage with a green-white checkered still out there that on a race that you should have won. So how could you have changed that? Because you are responsible for your car. You should have a trophy right now. You had an 8-second lead. He could have done so many different things, and hindsight's 20/20, but that's probably, I would imagine for Noah, that the first 24 hours, he was really mad at David Starr. And then by now he's probably mad at himself a little bit.
Well, it's time for a little fuel up here on the Backseat Drivers and rapid fire with the drive-through, because everybody needs some food on a good road trip. But for this one, I'm going to ask you guys, keep it short, sweet, and let's get your thoughts on these. So the first one coming up is there are two mad drivers coming out of Miami, one being Noah Gragson in the Xfinity Series that we just talked about, and the other being Tyler Reddick in the NASCAR Cup Series on Sunday. So, Landon, what mad interview was the best mad interview?
I'm taking Noah. I just gave him a hard time about everything, but I think I love it. He's passionate.
We love the emotion. Parker, who you got?
Well, that's the wrong answer because the right one is Chicken Tender Man, Tyler Reddick himself, being angry after finishing second, so distraught. I love to see that from a competitor who hasn't won a race yet, still angry to finish second. He's going to go and win a race this year.
Yeah, well, his buddy and fellow Xfinity Series champion was also taking to Twitter to talk about the chicken tenders because Tyler Reddick wasn't just mad that he lost. He was mad that we didn't all get chicken tenders. And we're kind of upset about that, too. So next up on the drive-thru, another first-time winner this season, Landon.
I mean, why not? I guess, I mean, we've seen 2 of them in the first 3. We still have plenty of super speedway racing left to go, new racetracks. Why not?
Parker?
I'm with you. Yes, we absolutely will. Most diverse schedule we've seen. We got a dirt race. Who's going to win that? Also, Bubba Wallace and that 2311 team are going to win a race this season, so we'll absolutely see another first-time winner.
Yeah, a happy Michael Jordan in the garage sounds like a good Michael Jordan to me. We talked about Team Penske a little bit earlier. Parker chose it as the team that he is keeping his eye on to make sure that they don't continue to struggle. But is there a chance to worry over at Team Penske? If you're over there in that camp, are you getting a little impatient?
No, because they have the speed, they have the performance, they've got all the ingredients. They just need to execute and find the results. So I do not think it is time to panic or worry at Team Penske.
Landon?
I think if you haven't been in contention to win a race and you're not outside the top 16 in points and you're in a Penske car, you should be worried. There's a lot to worry about. Get your stuff together. Don't start the season out in a hole and get it right.
Yeah, they cannot have a repeat from Miami. Their finishes were not strong there. And if you guys forgot, there's already 3 different drivers already locked into the NASCAR playoffs. So Team Penske got to pick it up. I know that there's going to be some betting odds coming out later this week, but let's talk about the sure bet because I want the one that you guys are going to Vegas. You're putting money down on this driver. Landon, who's your sure bet for Vegas?
Sure bet for Vegas. I mean, I earlier I put the pressure on Stuart Haas and Kevin Harvick. I want to see Kevin Harvick win a race these first 10 races. Let's start at Vegas.
All right, Parker, who's your sure bet?
My sure bet will be Joey Logano 22 car. They're incredible there. The spring race especially. He'll be super fast, and as long as they can, execute, they'll find themselves in victory lane.
All right, 2 past champs. Sounds like a sure bet to me. Let's do the opposite side of things. There's always a gambler out there in Vegas. Who's your long shot, Landon?
Hey, I like Tyler Reddick. I mean, he's driven. He's got some momentum coming out of Homestead. Vegas has proven that the groove is going to get wider and wider at this place. If he gets the opportunity to run against the fence and can do it without hitting the wall like he did at Homestead, he's dialed in from that. That'll be worth a half a second at the end of the race. Maybe a long green flag run to finish it, just like we did last week. It put him in a position to spoil somebody. Maybe he'll pass Harvick for the win.
That's a great pick, except my pick's going to beat him. That is 21 of Matt DiBenedetto. He was really fast there last year. He needs, something big here happen to turn around his season. It's been a horrible start for him. I think he's going to a great track for himself in those Team Penske cars. If Joe Logano isn't going to win, it'll be Matt DiBenedetto. And then just for all the bettors out there, I always look for those people outside the 11-1 range that are going to be your safe, your smart picks. So I think he'll be further back than that. So he'll be a long shot. But if you're looking for someone in between, a sure thing and that long shot, go for anyone outside 11-1.
The Backseat Drivers have a NASCAR Fantasy League. Play along with us on NASCAR.com/fantasy and search for the Backseat Drivers League or simply type in the link you see below. Play for bragging rights and your chance to be mentioned right here on the show. We actually have a leader after 3 weeks with 581 points, and that is 83 fan. Austin Dillon has had some strong showings, and you sound like you're an Austin Dillon fan, just taking a guess there. All right, well, thank you guys both for joining me so much. I appreciate it, and make sure to follow along all season long. NASCAR is headed out west. We're racing at Las Vegas Motor Speedway Sunday at 3:30 p.m. on Fox, and we'll be right back here to talk about it all next week right here in studio. Make sure and join us then. Thanks, guys.